Welcome to the Transportation Sales Tax Program. I'm Cheryl Harleston. We have a great guest for you today, and I hope that you'll stay with us. She is the mayor of the town of Mount Pleasant. Her name is Linda Page. We've got lots of interesting things to talk about with regards to infrastructure and what's going on in the town of Mount Pleasant and how the town of Mount Pleasant and the county of Charleston are cooperating. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Hey, Charleston County, let's recycle. Charleston County makes it easy. Recycling glass, aluminum cans, steel and aerosol cans, plastics 1 to 7. We recycle them all. And don't forget paper. If it tears, recycle it. Even cardboard. Recycle at work, at home, and at play. So whether you're using the 2 curbside bin system and separating or the all-in-one roll cart system, keep recycling. Brought to you by Charleston County Environmental Management.
Mayor Page, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm not sure what time we're doing this, but it's nice to talk with you, and it's nice to know that you're here for us. I want to talk about the Transportation Sales Tax Program.
Okay.
And I know that the town of Mount Pleasant has been involved with the program from its inception, so a long time.
Absolutely.
And how do you feel as the new mayor of this town? How do you feel about having the tax and having the tax have such a tremendous impact on Mount Pleasant, I assume? And where do we go from here? When it's all gone, then what do we do after that?
Well, you know, that's a lot of question, but
Yeah,
I
it
think
is.
that we have, obviously we've benefited very much by the penny sales tax. We have beautiful Johnny Dodds, portion of Highway 17, and they're beautiful projects. So I think we've gotten our fair share, maybe more than our fair share, and we were in early and we were ready to go and we had a nice project and they helped us build it with funding. That being said, where do we go from here and how do we deal with funding in the future? It's just like the schools, I asked the school district, what do we do before the tax? How did we build roads? How do we build schools? Because obviously it's been a windfall for communities to have this designated money to do these road projects. Well, we are obviously probably going to support the extension of the tax in the 2014 year. It's on the ballot, I believe, or will be on the ballot. And there are other projects that we have that are in line on the county's project list. We're now very low on the project list. We want to get Hungry Neck Extension done. That's the Sweetgrass Basket Makers Parkway. And
Right.
get it all the way out to Porches Bluff. First to 6, from 6 Mile to Porches Bluff. That'll be a huge advantage once the schools open in 2015, 2 new schools.
When the tax passed in 2004 and we began this work, residents understood that this was going to be 25 years or until we collected $1.3 billion, and that seems to be going on. The new tax that's being considered right now, would it be longer or shorter? And why are we going back to the public again for infrastructure money? And I know this is a long question, but the state has not raised the gasoline tax in 30 years. It's like 16 cents. In other communities, it's 30 and 40 cents. So those two things.
Well, I think we're going back to look at it now because we realized it was an effective way to build roads. State funding is not there. We face a $25 million, identified $25 million shortfall annually to just maintain infrastructure. We had a company come out and do a survey, and we looked at all our roads and ditches and sidewalks, and we said, if we were really going to keep everything at an A, it's $25 million a year. Now we reviewed that again, and we pared it down to $5.7 million, and we're funding it, part of it, out of our own funds, out of municipal funds. But obviously the challenge is that's repair and maintenance. That's not new roads, and we still need new roads, and we need road alignments. So I think we're revisiting a sales tax with the county because it was an easy way for municipalities to get it without that state support. There's very little state support for new roads. There is federal support, but there's very little state support. And why Miss Haley won't raise the gas tax is because philosophically, I don't believe she believes that the gas tax is the answer. And she wants to make sure she has looked at every option. North Carolina just recently raised their gas tax, and now I think a lot of people in North Carolina drive to South Carolina to buy our gas.
Right,
it's cheaper.
Exactly. does that, I don't want to say that. I want to let the public know that there is concern by the town, by the county, that the infrastructure be improved. Roads, bridges, intersections, the whole business. But it doesn't seem as if we're going to be able to have the dollars to do it. And I question whether or not enough planning has gone into this, and why aren't we using federal sources to do this job?
Well, that you bring up excellent points. I think municipalities are going to have to, and I know Mount Pleasant is doing it now, we're going to have to take care of our own because those funds are not there. Why they're not there isn't for me to debate. The roads were built, we have the interstate highway, of course, federal roads are owned by the Interstate Highway Department, all of that. Then we have state roads and we have local roads. And the state doesn't want to be in the road business. Obviously, they want the municipalities to take that. So there is a shift. And no, maybe perhaps we weren't thinking forward. Maybe we were remiss all those years ago when we talked about how roads get built and who funds them. Because it's not just building a road. It's keeping it paved.
That's right.
And it's keeping the curb and guttering, and it's keeping the road runoff. There's a lot more to roads than just putting it in.
Maintenance and upkeep. And I think that's the kind of question I want to ask you next. This is upkeep can be expensive. Improving the bridges could be expensive. We want to continue Johnny Dodds Boulevard and to do the things there that we want to do. But I'm going to take this. You're a wonderful interviewee, I tell you. But let's just take this a little bit at a time.
Sure.
Maintenance, it seems to me like if these are state roads and streets, which they are in many cases, that the state would take that responsibility. Now, I understand what you said about the governor. But don't you think that if the state owns these roads, in most cases or many cases, that they should be responsible?
I absolutely do. And now, obviously, we had a recent bridge problem with icing. And I know that the head of the state DOT is no longer in office as of a couple weeks ago. So we have an interim person in that office. I know that there was a comment or a quote from him that stated he was in a losing proposition in that job because, he had all these things to take care of with very little funding to do it. So I know the state's aware of the issue. I have not had a conversation with that office. As a municipality, obviously, my concern is my citizens, safe roadways, clear roadways, roadways that throw water off the way they're supposed to. And, obviously, aesthetics are important too. So there's a lot of issues going on. Last year, I will tell you that 526 the grass didn't get cut very often. Now, it's a minor issue, but it's a big issue when it becomes a hazard because there's even a visibility issue. So I think the state should be funding them better. Local municipalities such as mine, we're asking them the questions. We just really haven't gotten all the answers yet.
Even though it's theirs, even though it's going to be returned to the state once it's completed with the tax dollars from the town and from the county and all those things, we still must continue to go forward with them or without them. Is that the idea?
Oh, absolutely.
We have no other choice, do we?
Oh, we don't. And that's why we had a company come in, a consulting firm, and we did an actual assessment, an inventory, so to speak, of everything we owned. Not only every road, but every culvert, every piece of sidewalk, every sidewalk extension. I mean, all the things that we had. Now, all those things are owned by different people, but we are prepared to assume responsibility because without outside sources of funding, it is our responsibility because we have to keep them passable, we have to keep them safe. Now, are we asking for the correct funding? All the time, obviously, and we're putting a request in. I have a meeting this week with the county about some funding for additional road, although we're very low on the project list, but we're still going to talk to them about it,
I'm thinking now about Johnny Dodds I'll get away from the politics for a minute, I guess.
That's fine.
But Johnny Dodds is a wonderful project, and I know that the town appreciates that, and the various mayors have been involved in making sure that this happens. Where are you going to go with Johnny Dodds? Does it extend itself further in some way? And what are the towns and the council's plans for that area?
Well, we have two products. We have Johnny Dodds, the actual frontage road, and then we have Highway 17 North. So let's divide them. We now have the overpasses at Bowman Road and the overpass at Hungry Neck Boulevard. So we have created, so to speak, 8 lanes of travel. 2-way each on the Johnny Dodds side, and 3 travel lanes up to Bowman Road, and then it's 2 travel lanes all the way out to Darrell Creek Trail. So those roads will handle the capacity that we've identified for many, many years to come. Improvements will need to be made along the routes, and those are realignments, adjustments to make things flow better. And we also have development coming. I mean, the town of Mount Pleasant is growing, and as that development comes, will that indicate the need for different roads or different approaches? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Along with that, Mayor, what happened when we had the ice storm? And one of our main exits from this area is that of the Ravenel Bridge. What happened to that traffic? Because usually on 17 there's a lot of traffic when there is no ice storm. So what happened?
It was
How did y'all handle that?
very quiet in my community for a couple of days. At some point, both bridges were closed. So the Don Holt Bridge was closed, as well as the Arthur Ravenel. So we were landlocked. So there was no way out unless you went 402 around the Monk's Corner. So there was very little commerce. There was very little activity, and it was very problematic. The state did respond and we did have a meeting about it. That's a pretty long conversation. And hopefully in the future we're addressing ice on the bridge, because we can't have that bridge closed like it was for days at a time.
Was it a good idea to create, I'm not looking back and wanting to criticize or anything like that, but was it a good idea to make that overpass as opposed to maybe just flat moving the traffic in that way, by land completely? I'm talking about the Johnny Dodds Bridge right now. Is this a good design, in other words?
Well, the Johnny Dodds, our overpasses weren't problematic at all. Obviously, the big problem was the Arthur Ravenel Bridge and the ice sheeting on the cables. It wasn't even a road bed issue. It was the ice sheeting on the cables. So
that's what it was. And I imagine that traffic was snarled at that point, and people had a difficult time getting out, but it worked. Eventually, it went away.
It did. Eventually, we had 526 open, Don Holt open, so the people who had to traverse over to the other side of the river, they had to go the long way around. So if you worked at MUSC or in downtown Charleston, sure, it was quite a long commute for you on a very, very busy day, because traffic, of course, was all diverted in one direction.
The town and the county as partners are finishing up a good number of projects. And it was really interesting to see 2 government entities working together, and the county and the town of Mount Pleasant, and of course the county's worked with lots of towns and their representatives, and it seems to have worked out pretty good.
It did. Tim Armstrong was awesome. We had an EOC set up. We had great communication with not only the county to find out what was going on, the support, the state through the DOT, and Mayor Riley's office and my office. Our administrators and our staff were in constant contact. It was a good collaboration. We worked good together.
One of the things that I really admired was the effort to bring the public in and to get them involved in various meetings and hearings and that kind of thing. But one of the special projects that I think really counted and made the public feel good about what was going on was the opening of a center, a citizen center, where they could come in, ask questions at any time, just about, and get answers and so forth. Did that really work out well for you, and do you recommend it to others?
It did work out well, and I'll have to tell you, any time that we have somewhat of an emergency, we will open up an emergency operations command center. So, we have a little EOC here in the town that we open up. But one of the communications things that worked the best was the tweets by our policemen. And I don't know if you're a tweeter.
Well, I'm trying. My partner, Jamie Brown, tries to teach me these things, but sometimes, I'm a little slow. But
Well, I
I'm
have
from
to
the
say,
typewriter age.
well, between social media, so the town's Facebook page, my mayor's Facebook page, and the tweets from the police department, that also helped because people had instant information. So the minute we would get an update, it was either tweeted out, or if they were up on the bridge, they were tweeting. And Brad Franco, one of the local newscasters, told me, he said, "Man, we were just following the police tweets."
Wow.
Yeah. So I think we do a great job of getting information out, and I think citizens expect that. And I think we'll continue to do those type things. That's great.
When we come back from the break, we're going to be talking with Mayor Page a little bit further about what is going to be happening next. Some of these projects are coming to a close, and there must be something else that the town is planning in the way of the infrastructure and for us, residents of Mount Pleasant. We'll be back in just a moment. Please don't go away.
Hey, Charleston County, let's recycle. Charleston County makes it easy. Recycling glass, aluminum cans, steel and aerosol cans, plastics 1 to 7. We recycle them all. And don't forget paper. If it tears, recycle it. Even cardboard. Recycle at work, at home, and at play. So whether you're using the 2 curbside bin system and separating, or the all-in-one roll cart system, keep recycling. Brought to you by Charleston County Environmental Management.
Welcome back to our program. We're talking with Mayor Linda Page about the transportation sales tax program and the impact that it's had on the town of Mount Pleasant. The question now is, where do we go from here in terms of projects that you consider and the town council considers priorities? And what do you see in the future in terms of making further inroads into what's happening here?
Oh, we got projects in mind, I will tell you. We do a great job here in the town of Mount Pleasant. We have a list of projects, and we rank them. And they rank many different ways. We rank them based on the benefit to the citizens, the benefit to the most citizens, increased capacity on other roadways. So there's lots of projects that we have, and that's our capital improvement plan. So we rank those every year. So annually we revisit those. Some of the big projects that we need to finish right now, and probably the one that's most important to me right now, is the extension of Hungry Neck Boulevard, also known as Sweetgrass Basket Makers Boulevard. That road now comes off of 526 directly with an exit, and it goes along the backside of Town Center all the way to 6 Mile Road. We have right-of-way acquired, and at the end on Hamlin Road, we're building 2 new schools, very large schools. So I think it's very important that we finish that road from 6 Mile out to Porches Bluff. That'll go right by Hamlin. Charleston County School District is paying for a portion of it because they have to access the back sides of the school, buses, parking, and things like that. So now's the perfect time. And I'd like to pull the trigger on that as soon as we can find a funding source. We're asking the county, we're very low on the priority list. We might have to fund it. We're looking for other ways to fund that. That's my number one. We have some issues that are efficiency issues. Park West is one of our larger subdivision areas, and I'm sure you know that area very well. Highway 41, Bessemer Road comes out onto Highway 41, and we need improvements there. There's a large stacking situation, so residents are having to stay in a long line of traffic, so we need to increase the efficiency, new turn lanes and things like that. It's a relatively small road project. It's $750,000, but for us that's a relatively small road project. There's a huge problem on Long Point Road. Long Point Road with the approach to I-526, that intersection, and all intersections, and people, I guess they don't know this, but all intersections are ranked. So you're an A, B, C, D, E, or an F, and that's one of our lowest performing intersections. Because you have 526 coming, you have people exiting to the right to go to Bell Hall and to the shopping areas and up Long Point Road. And then you have a huge exodus of people in the mornings leaving the neighborhoods on Long Point Road to enter onto 526. Add that additionally State Ports Authority traffic, which is truck traffic, heavy truck traffic that is going over the Don Holt Bridge. So that intersection is very problematic. We have determined that we could create sort of a pass-through lane so that the people who were only going up 526 could more effectively and efficiently go, and it would probably help with congestion in that area. Again, it's a relatively small project, $1 million, $1.5 million, but it's one we need to look at pretty soon.
It would be awfully difficult to, I would think it would be awfully difficult to expand Long Point Road because of all the marsh. Is that something, wouldn't that be a good idea if that road could be widened?
Right.
And maybe 4 lanes?
Right, and it can't. There isn't space. There's not right-of-way space. So we can improve. Sometimes you can't widen the road, but you can increase the efficiency by addressing the intersections. And signalization. We work a lot with our light signals and how they sync. So we also have probably another one that's top of the list, Long Point Road on the other end. Where you know where Boone Hall, when you come out of Long Point Road, Boone Hall and 17.
Well, a turning lane was put in there to come directly to Long Point. And did that help any?
It helped a little, but what we need to do, we need to widen that end of it. The end of Long Point Road needs to be widened, and it needs to be realigned with the road across the street, which is Old Georgetown Road, which goes by Christ Church. We have we have the cultural corridor, we have Boone Hall Plantation, we have Charles Pinckney site, and they need improvements to that roadway with pedestrian and bus facilities. So, I mean, it needs to be, it's very narrow now, it needs to be improved. So we've got lots of things that we want to do.
Well, one of the things that's getting done, or will have started, I hope by the time we have this interview, and that is Ben Sawyer in that area, and we're putting in a multi-path, or multi-use path, I should say.
Right.
So how do you feel about, we just broke ground for that. That's going to work.
We did, and I saw you down there.
That's right.
I saw you down there. That was a great project. Matter of fact,
Good.
I was talking to Tom O'Rourke about it. It's great. We're going to have an 8-foot wide multi-use path. It'll be bike, pedestrian, wheelchair accessible. And it's going to be somewhat divided from the roadway. So I think it's going to be a great improvement for the bike and walking community in that area.
Joggers and
they're going to be out there.
Yeah, that's great.
Safely out there.
Well,
And
it's a beautiful area too.
I forgot to tell you because, see, in my world, we've already moved past Coleman Boulevard because the design work is almost all completed there. We will be adding medians on Coleman Boulevard. That funding is already in place. Some more on-street parking, and there is a dual